What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Live with Weiss. Simply here to share information, to share our passions, to share our stories, in the hopes that as you watch this, perhaps you might walk away with something. Now, last week we talked about audio setups and so forth, because obviously, your audio interface in the way in which you are communicating with people is super important. Well, pretty good segue into today's session. Today, we are going to bring on the one, the only Alex Smith, who is a seasoned sales rep, a podcast host, and we're going to be diving into a topic that really ties into our audio session that we talked about last time. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Alex. Alex, what's going on, brother?
What's going on, Matt? How's it going? Really glad to be here, man.
I'm happy that you're here, and it's a beautiful day. The sun is glaring right into my face, so I have terrible lighting, which, by the way, everybody, we will talk about lighting in another day. But Alex, I'm glad you're here, and of course, I want to know that, based off of our intro and what we saw, we're talking about connections, deeper connections within sales. Why are we talking about this today?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we're talking about it now because, listen, look, we're a year and a half into the pandemic, and I think people are. It's really easy for people to say, we don't need human connections in sales. We can sell things without taking people out and building relationships. It's all about value, which it is. You need to create value in sales, and you have to be seen as somebody that is trustworthy, that knows someone's business and everything. But that doesn't mean relationships all of a sudden have removed themselves out of the equation. That doesn't mean that human connection all of a sudden just evaporated in the last year and a half because of COVID. And we've realized we can make sales without it. I think it's important now more than ever because we're disconnected more than ever with each other. We've been meeting with each other on Zoom screens. It's not, we weren't born to connect on Zoom. We weren't born to connect like this, even though this is a great way to connect. I mean, I always say that we're human beings, are feeling beings that happen to think. And more than ever now, we need to ignite those emotions and feelings with our customers in this world that we live in now, and realize that it's more important now than ever.
100%. I think, the past year has taught us a lot. It scared the hell out of everybody. It really, we became very inclusive people for the majority part. The way in which we interact with people has changed, has completely not evaporated, but has shifted. The shift of the way in which we communicate. I mean, look, the way in which we met, you and I, we met through LinkedIn, right? We met through, just having a conversation and just getting things kicked off. And then all of a sudden we got on a phone call, and all of a sudden we started to build a stronger relationship. We just want to understand each other's story, what our drive was and so forth. But that's different, right? Before, we could go out. I'd be like, where are you based out of? And I'd be like, okay, when I'm out there, let's meet up. Let's grab a coffee. Let's grab a drink. It depends on what kind of crazy day it is. And let's start to enact and let's start to build that relationship. I'm totally with you on that. And I think you're onto something that's really, really important, which is we can't just live in what happened in the past, right? We have to reshape our relationship building and the way in which we connect with each other. And I think it's really cool just to think about the different ways in which we can connect today, and can some of the stuff previously we've done apply to the new way.
Yeah, I mean, I miss the good old days a year and a half ago when you could just take your Amex and you can just put hundreds of dollars down in a steak restaurant and buy, cocktails and go to conferences and then go to a happy hour, then go to another place, and then and that was all fun and great. And you got to really have these like comfortable moments with people, like
Right.
they're out, their armor's off, they're outside of the office. Sometimes when you're outside of the office, like you can share moments with people, you can share stories, you can learn about each other's kids and their hobbies, and all that's great. And and then now, like, you don't have that much time to create human connection. You don't have those hours of happy hours or hours of conferences or one-to-one face-to-face conversations that can lead to that. You're talking to avatars. You're talking to what you think are just an avatar or a message, and you don't know how to really come across as more than other than a salesperson. You can't come across as a person. And I think that's the key. Is that's always been a part of sales. I mean, people want to do business with people. They want to do people with, of course, people that know, like, and trust them. But it's just so easy now to be lumped into someone that's just like, oh, this person's just trying to dig into my problem and fit in their solution into my problem and know my business, and they forget about that. At the end of the day, this just the most simple part of it is I want someone to see me, to care about me, to know that they've actually paid attention and listened to something specific about me. We all want people to care about the individuals that we are, and when people take a little more of time, people feel that you're aware of them. And not even just them in a sales sense, but them as people, then they're like, you know what, I feel comfortable. You then put yourself in a different category of, okay, I'm going to tell Alex or Matt more information because I'm comfortable. I'm in this situation where I don't feel like they have any weapons that can hurt me. My armor is down a little bit because I feel like I've heard people say, Alex, you're just good people. You're a good egg. You're a good one.
There it is.
And
yeah.
I don't mean to brag, but like, seriously, when you get that feeling of someone saying that to you, wow, like, what could they could tell you stuff that may risk them, that maybe risk them, like not knowing enough information. So you want people to feel like this is a safe space to say information, and you can't get that, unfortunately, at happy hours anymore or conferences. You have to do it quickly, and the people that can do it quickly can really, I think, distinguish themselves from so many salespeople out there that are really just thinking about the sale instead of the person. Yeah.
There's something that was really key in there that's really standing out to me, and I definitely want to ask you about, which is we mentioned time, right? That idea that going to a conference and being able to get somebody out of their work zone and pulling them in, which, by the way, great segue into one of the participants that are in here. Jack Wilson brought up you don't get to rent an Airbnb at a sales conference and mind meld with some of the best. So, Jack, it's true, right? I love that. Yeah. But, when it comes down to specifically time, I think that's super important. And you mentioned that. And you're in the field. You are doing this in the field today. Tell me more about what you mean by time. And what exactly does that equation look like today, if it is an equation?
Yeah, well, I love Jack. Jack is somebody that I built a great connection with in person, and you could do that in person. You could just come. He's a speaker, and you could come and find him afterwards and have a real, honest conversation, and then even go out to an awesome Airbnb, and which we did, where there was all sorts of awesome sales folks and drinks were had, games were played, and you could just have awesome conversations. I can't do that anymore, and those are conferences. They will hopefully come back, and shout out October. We will be there again, hopefully in Austin, Texas, to do again. But when I talk about time, it's like, the currency. Yeah, that's the currency. When people think a myth is that you can't build a deep connection with someone in 30 minutes on a Zoom call. on a discovery call or 30 minutes on a demo call. And I say I call BS to that. I just call BS to it because, we can all think of those times in our life where we had that moment in time where someone saw us or we saw them. I like to say people will give you a chance to be a real person. And when they give you those, and they don't come all the time. There's these fleeting opportunities in life where people will actually give you the chance to be a real person. And when they do, please take them up on it. And what I mean by that is take them up on it. People, be aware. People will say things like, just a simple question like, how are you doing today? And I love to say to people all sorts of things. Like you could say, like, not like the most personal parts of your day, but like I'll say to people on a cold call, like, yeah, thanks for asking. You know what? It's a sunny day out here in Florida. I got a pool out back and I got a boat out back. I could be doing those things, but I'm calling you. Other than that, I'm doing just great. How are you doing? Oh, no way. I went to Florida. Where do you live in Florida? And then we're off to the races. Or, someone says to me, man, Alex, there's just so much stuff I'm doing in my day. I got to go away this week. Where are you from? Where are you from originally? I may ask them, so where are you from? So I see you're out there in, wherever, like outside of Boston. Where are you from originally? And this person might say, and Jack knows this, so this person might say, I'm from, she said, Africa. She said, she said Dominican Republic, or Haiti. And we started talking about Haiti and the Dominican Republic and how she had family over there still, and how she had her first child at age 16. Because people will just start giving you information when you stop and take the time, and it could be 5 seconds, it could be a minute, it could be 15 minutes, just to talk about like something that a little nugget that they just gave you. And if you stay there just for a second, where sometimes it could be the whole call. People remember that, and and it's not just about you then or the sale, it's about this space in between the two of you, and people remember that. There's a feeling associated with that, and I think it can be created in just a short amount of time. I've seen it done so many different times.
I think it's the awareness of that moment is so important. I was thinking about this because with connections, especially in sales, one of the hardest things about awareness and actually constructing awareness of something like what you're talking about, right? Just as simple as that, and being self-aware of like this conversation could actually open up to a deeper connection, is that, and I think this is something that happens truly. So it's not a myth, but a real actionable thing, is that most sellers, when they get the chance to have the conversation, you and I are, you're my cold call, you're my next prospect, and you're actually willing to give me 10 seconds to speak. The choice I have is either A, do I sell you my product? Do I sell you our vision? Do I sell you a problem that we're solving? Or do I listen for a moment and actually hyper aware? And what ends up happening in most of the time, especially for early sellers, is that they get so excited. Any seller, everyone knows it. If you're a seller, you know this. You get amped up and you're like, you're on the phone. This is my moment of fame. I'm going to sell you my product. But you, how can you sell something right there and then without actually building that connection? Are you even aware that this person is even ready to be sold or not? And you never know until you have an actual connection with someone. And that jumping point, I think, takes away that awareness and time, because all you're trying to do is allocate time to selling the product rather than selling the connection that you're trying to have. And, when you're selling it, it's a connection between you and someone else. It's not even selling a product at that point, which is, I think, like you're mentioning, something deeper.
Yeah. I mean, just think about like what you just said, like most people, and I've been on this included, like you have numbers and goals and your intention is to set a meeting, and what is the intention of a cold call? And some, new reps to sales will say, Well, I got to get to the next call. I got to get to the meeting. And when you're driven by those things and those numbers, you forget that the whole reason why you're calling isn't, is to first and foremost learn about the person on the other end. Understand and empathize with the person on the other end to see if they even are somebody that you could use what you have, that maybe could discover together if what you have is something that can really change their world or not. Like, you can only know so much from the outside and your persona sheet and a job title and LinkedIn and company financials and all that stuff. At the end of the day, though, it becomes like what you can know about that person. And when you say stuff like, wow, just tell me how that's going. When you say, like, okay, like, would it be all right if, like, I ask you a couple questions and you can tell me if this is a meeting worth having or a conversation worth having or something that's relevant to your day to day? People are going to say, yeah. And then, you're not just searching for like something that you can fit into your product. You're actually just trying to ask them some type of question that, builds some type of connection, like, wow, this guy, Alex, actually knows my business and took the time and to actually know me. And, he listened to something, like a way they said something. And, when you say things like just kind of curious, like, how are you handling that? Or what's your approach to that? Or, what's your, like, I want to know what's your perspective on what I just said. Like, I talk to a lot of people that look like you, and I don't know that, like, this is you, but they tell me this, and they're looking at this situation from this lens. I'm curious about what you're looking at it like, and they say something like, well, something like really small, like, well, we'd really like a system to do X, Y, and Z really broad. Really? Yeah. Tell me, like, when you say that, what do you mean? Tell me more about that. Like, sounds like that's not everything that you're looking for. How's that really going for you? Like, tell me what you really mean about that. Well, and they'll go in and they'll tell you so much more, because you know what? It's like, this person actually cares about the person. They're asking me questions about me, not trying to talk about like them, their product, or anything like that. So I just think that can happen on a cold call. I've had people go on, like people may, like, you may interrupt them, but all of a sudden, if the switch flips and they're like, this person's actually talking to me like a friend, then they will feel more comfortable giving you more information. And that's what I think the essence is that you can't, it's something you can't always teach. It's kind of a feel thing, but I think you can learn it. You just have to come with the intention to genuinely learn and believe that this human connection is possible. I think we were born to connect. We have emotions for a reason. We have ears for a reason. We have eyes, and we can, like, have these senses for a reason. We have to use them, and it's difficult. And there's different ways that we use them. But I think if you're in tune to what people are saying in their tone, and you can try to pull on those threads a little bit and kind of like just keep your eyes out for some of it, then that's where that's where it builds. That's where the human connection builds.
I think in part of a human connection, there's a sense of being real, right? And I think there is a boundary line. And this past year, we've again been very inclusive. We've been very, very inbound, right? It's been very hard to expand, and we need to get back into being able to expand and build these strong connections. And going back to that, it's about being real with people as well. There's being genuine, but being genuine means you're being real. I mean, there's a sense. Don't get me wrong. I can be real all the time, but I've got to tone my realness, especially on here, specifically because it could go. Sometimes I get too real. But there's a sense of realness that needs to happen. And I know that it's something that you're really passionate about being real with people, is something that's super huge. So in your perspective, Alex, when it comes to the realness, being genuine, what are some of the things that people and steps that people can take to really accentuate that, to really put that into practice?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think people confuse like what being real actually means and like what boundaries are. And like you can be, I think people confuse the word professional and the word corporate.
Yeah.
Being professional is just knowing your stuff and knowing your product and knowing your buyer and being able to communicate that in a clear, concise, compelling way while still like being able to be you and sound like you and not have to put on a mask or an act or anything like that. Being corporate is putting on a suit and trying to look a certain way and trying to fit into a group and trying to just hide who you are. And so like yes, there are boundaries to to live with, but I think when people know like this person isn't trying to be perfect, being real to me is having some flaws, is just think about like you getting a call from a telemarketer. Like I got one today, like it was like a robocall, like
Nice.
for my car, to my extended car warranty, and I don't have an extended warranty. It's like, oh, we see your extended warranty is coming due, like press 1 for, and that's like a robocall. And if you're just saying like over and over again your script, like we call people like you and typically they tell us this, and I want to know what you think about that, and it just comes across as like this is the 100th call. Whereas if you can take a step back and just like I listened to a cold call the other day. This girl was awesome. She just made a joke about herself. She self-deprecated herself. Like she was going into her pitch and her iPhone went off in the middle of the call, and she's like, oh gosh, I just got to say this. Like I'm talking to you, but my iPhone thinks I'm talking to him, so my iPhone's talking back to me. So that's kind of funny. and the prospect laugh, and they had this great conversation. So I think it's just kind of like when you can take steps to kind of laugh, to smile, on every, just kind of like, have yourself just kind of in a good mood and just, thinking like, hey, and you're willing to, like, when some people say like, how are you doing? Like, give them something to pull on, go beyond just like, I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing good. How about you? Or yeah, the weather here is doing all right. Like I'm it'd be better if the weather was nicer. Just, kind of like, yeah, like I had this phenomenal like vacation this past weekend, or this weekend was awesome. Like, here's what I did. And so I'm feeling jazzed. Or, hey, like I'm doing all right. I'm not like I said to a couple of people, like not know about you, but I'm 40 and I got a ton of back issues and my fingers right now are numb. And other than that though, like I'm doing all right. Like I sometimes joke around with people like that. Like if something's bad happening to me, like, this is what I'm going through today. Other than that, I'm doing okay. And then they'll talk about what you just said. So I've had people on my podcast where I've said they've said to me like, vulnerability is about just kind of like giving people a little bit and then, seeing if they reciprocate it. And then you give it back. And then you're in this like cycle of, this like vulnerability, reciprocation cycle, or vulnerability ping pong, whatever you want to say. Think about things like you can just give people about yourself, or about your day, about what you're doing, and see if they reciprocate it. If they don't, then you can just, like this person is maybe a different personality. So, and you have to like be aware of different personalities. So we could talk about that, because I know if Jack's on, we could talk about that. But like, I think the steps are, offer some things out about yourself, little nuggets that people can pull on.
I'm gonna write this down. Offer
nuggets about yourself. I would say be aware of what people are like their emotions, what their body language is telling you about them, what their tone is saying about them, and try to go a little bit deeper, to what they're doing, and ask and maybe probe into those emotions. And then maybe a third would just be, just kind of like just realize and make it your intention to think that this is possible, to really get to know the person first, and let knowing the person lead you into the sale, not the other way around.
I love that. And I think personas of people is super important. And I'm going to ask you this, Alex. And I don't know if you've been asked this recently, but I'd be curious. How would you describe your own persona?
My own persona, like my personality, or
your personality, the persona that you give to people.
Yeah, I mean, I've done different assessments, so I've been
listen. Bleep this one, but F the assessments. What internally if you were to describe it from an internal perspective, what is that persona?
Yeah, it's somebody that's very much I say I want to see and hear and understand other people deeply. I really want to create those deep connections. So I'm somebody that's a listener. I'm somebody that's empathetic. I'm somebody that's going to really throw a lot of love out into the table to see if I can build that connection with people. I say, we're all worthy of dignity and respect, and so I kind of treat people with respect, even though they may not give me I may not know if they're somebody that's giving it to me. I just give you that benefit of the doubt. So I'm somebody that's that's going to want to accommodate, that's going to want to to listen. On the other side of it, though, I also am somebody that's going to want to learn and be somebody that's going to maybe probe you, not press you, but help you think through ideas. So call that challenge, call that whatever, call that a challenger, but it's somebody with maybe a challenger mindset with a relationship heart.
Wow.
So I think that's somebody I would probably describe myself as.
Man, you encompass a ton of stuff. Just real quick from the audience, Beth dropped in, gave us a little bit here. She said vulnerability is a superpower. So first of all, I'll just respond to that one. Yes, Beth, it absolutely is. Superpower is just the right terminology, because we fear being vulnerable on a regular basis. But as you practice, because practice makes permanent vulnerability, and finding out what works with people and what doesn't, because you got to be aware of that. I totally agree, though. It is a superpower.
That I couldn't agree more about that. I mean, I'm a huge Brene Brown fan, so I mean, there's no courage without vulnerability. And I think too often people have it confused too. They think vulnerability is just it's like oversharing or something like that. And I think too often, especially in sales too, we are people that are craving this emotional connection, and you can't sever. It's not like you can just be someone in business, call it whatever you want, and sever the emotions out of business, or sever the heart out of business. I kind of talked about in a post the other day, Brene Brown, she talks about daring leadership, and that it's not fear that prevents daring leadership. It's this armor. We all want to put up these shields and this armor to protect ourselves. If we think that we're going to be hurt, we want to protect ourselves. We self-protect. That's just what we do. We all do it. We don't want to risk not knowing something. We don't want to risk looking stupid. We don't want to risk not being loved or liked, or part of the crowd. And so that's there. That's always going to be there. But I think those people that can make that armor go down, disarm people, so to speak, not for manipulation.
Yeah,
because it can be used in a very nefarious way, but in a truly in a truly like two-way beneficial way, loving way, people that are just like safe to be around. That's where like, again, you be vulnerable with someone else and be a little bit vulnerable with them. They reciprocate it. And then now like both of your armors are down. You can have like a real conversation, not like a surface level. I think so often we're in a surface level conversation with our buyers, with people. They just tell us one thing. They tell us just a few things, and they're hiding really kind of like the information that can really direct the conversation where it needs to go. And when you bring those armors down, whether it's through listening, whether through vulnerability, that's where the true power is. I'll end with a quote. I just wrote this down. She said, and this is Manoush Shafiq, London School of Economics. In the past, jobs were about muscles. Now they're about brains. But in the future, they'll be about heart. And I think that's deep. I mean, that's true. It's just like, it has to be that way. I think we're just, disconnected again more than ever. People that are really good at this stuff can get the information, can get the connection, can get the level of trust that just just people that aren't doing these things just aren't equipped to get to.
And just to let you know, after you did that, I would concur. Beth dropped in and said it was a mic drop for you. So
thanks, Beth.
That's 100%. Yes. And very good call as well. I think from a vulnerability perspective, you talk about armor. I think you have to work on it though. I mean, for everybody that's watching this and from picking up a skill, listen, you're going to get skills left and right, especially from a sales perspective when it comes to conversations, when you're going to get it, when it comes towards challenger messaging, and you're going to get disc, and you're going to get this, and you're going to get that, right? That accompanies you. But, from a skill set that is, I think, has to be self-taught, and you have to become self-aware. I love the awareness. Vulnerability is a personal thing. And you need to ask yourself a few questions without a doubt. Are you vulnerable in your conversations today? And if you're not, how would you define what that vulnerability is, and how can then you apply it? You have to be able to self-teach yourself. It's not a skill that someone else is going to teach you. It just doesn't happen, because I like the quote you use. That's a heart thing, right? It's not a muscle. It's not a business thing. It's not none of that. It is truly a heart thing connected to your brain. So, you can self-teach that type of vulnerability, and you can self-define what that is as well. So really liked what you put out there. By the way, going back to your persona, I'll challenge you on this. Condense all that into just one thing. I would say condense that. And for everybody else out there, what is your persona? How would you describe it in just one sentence? How would you describe it in less than one sentence? Because I'll tell you this, I always try to figure out my persona. Right now, my persona in the ether that we're in, Alex, pirate. 100% pirate. And the reason why I say that is not because of this glorious mane of a beard that I have, or the hat, or my appearance, which can have a little bit of rebelliousness, but it's the ability to have that a type of conversation that can have a little bit of humor involved with it. But I'm always in the process of finding treasure, right? To finding something and unraveling it. But you gotta find a map. You gotta explore the map. You've got to dig in a little bit deeper. You've got to talk to the right people. You've got to go on that exploration. That's why I always say my persona, though, because this is within the pirate world. I need to get a huge pirate flag right back here. That's going to represent who I am.
Yeah. I mean, like for me, like you're making me think, like, yes, I think we sometimes confuse like persona with like kind of our purpose.
Oh yeah.
So like kind of like our purpose is kind of like what we're here to do. like what we're driven by, our why. Like, why are we doing this? And I'm, and our persona is kind of like what, like, how do others view us? How do we view view ourselves? And there's all sorts of adjectives that describe us. And so, like, our persona, I think our personalities are complex. Like, we're just complex people,
Right.
and so, like, personas were things that, like, sales managers created to say, like, yes, all VPs of sales are care about certain things, and they group together kind of like what the generalizations are, so that, like, we have something to pull on when we call these people. And so that's like your persona sheet. And but but
Oh,
I think,
don't
like,
ask me about that, man. That's a whole different story for me, and
right.
having a robot tell me what I am.
Right. And there's some truth and validity, like there's some, like, good reasons to do those things, because you have to, kind of start somewhere with people, right?
Sure.
But again, I think, like, personalities then are different in that, like, okay, this is someone who is a VP of sales. Now I'm on the phone, and maybe they're short with me. And so I can see that this person maybe is someone that's, like, maybe more of a doer, and they're just like, they want to get stuff done. They want you to get to the point quickly. Or maybe the person's more of accommodating. Maybe they're, like, more of a relationship person. So I can kind of, like, tell more of a story. And so you have to be, like, really perceptive of what someone's personality is like, and what they're doing, and how are they matching, like where would you put them, like what box would you put them. And then I think the purpose is more of, like, why we do what we do. Because I can say, like, I love, truly love fostering connections that help people become really empowered and fulfilled to do their best work. And I do that through helping people love not just what they learn, but how they learn it. And so, like, I've practiced some of those things, but, like, kind of our persona, yeah, I agree with you. Like, if I had to go with, like, a pirate, maybe I would just say, like, human first, human being always.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
I'm
but
a human. I believe, human. Being human in sales is really is what matters, and I'm curious how it's being applied. So, like, I bring that, my realness, my personality, my humanness, or whatever, humanity, to the sales process, and that's kind of what I'm about.
But that's important, though, because we talk deeper connections with people and making that connection. It's okay to, and this happens a lot, right? There's a box of personalities, a box of personas that we're trying to discover and understand on the other side. But I think a lot of people, a lot of times when it comes to these connections, is like, how would you define yourself? Right? You're not having your manager define you. You don't have to have your manager define you. Right? You don't have to have, some stupid scorecard that, you have to run it through a number 2 pencil, and then it's got to go through a machine, and then it's got to, calculate it. Like, that's that when it comes to the connections, you should know who your own personality, your own persona, and what it is and what it's encompassed. And I think that's super important. And, you could take the influences of everything else and understand it, but you have to have your own definition too, because being real with those connections, like we talked about, and having intention, but do we actually know ourselves first, is even more important. And obviously, based off your description, you could write a memoir on your persona, which was awesome. It's incredible. But being able to know what yours is, and then the person on the other side, I mean, you're going to know right off the bat whether or not you're going to get along with that person or not.
I know. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that I try to connect with. I'm adaptive, and I do know how to tone it up, turn it down, go left and go right. But if I were to put it place to place, sometimes my persona, my personality and who I am may not match with the person on the other side, which will lose that connection pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, I think you said a keyword, adaptive. So I think, like, for people that are watching this, like, do not confuse persona with personality. They're two completely different things. And
yes.
Personas are created by people. Personas are I would say, created. Personalities are a lot of times revealed. And personalities, sometimes people can't always define themselves. It's an infinite game a lot of times that we can't even define for ourselves. Self-awareness isn't something you just all of a sudden wake up and you become self-aware. Like people go to a freaking go to the mountains and they become monks and to spend years in monasteries to become self-aware, and they still haven't come close to it, right? Like it's an infinite game, whereas personas is like a finite game. We feel like we know people well enough to define them, but the reality is like human beings are just complex. We're messy. We're a lot of different things most of the times. And so the people that can, like you say, adapt, pick up on someone's personality and not change who you are, but like just recognize like what they're doing and quickly adapt, and just understand how they need to how you need to give and how they need to receive information. Those are the people that are going to find some success, because they can, again, people feel comfortable being around them because they're picking up what they're putting down.
Right.
They feel like you're not wasting their time. They feel they enjoy the time that they spend with you, because they enjoy people that are that understand them. So create those environments for people to enjoy spending time with you, whether or not they're like totally opposite than you or whether they're the same with you. It's tough. Do the work to ask yourself, like go on, like when you're meeting with people, go on calls and kind of ask afterwards, like break it down, like what kind of personality was that person? Well, who do I think they were? Were they somebody that's really quick and a driver trying to get information, or are they somebody that's more of a relationship builder, and why? And kind of how would I rank how I interacted with them? What could I have done differently? So you can kind of see like your gaps on that, because we train so much on like sales fundamentals and they're so great, but like what about people fundamentals of like understanding personalities? That's something that's really, really tough, like for psychologists to even understand. But like I think salespeople can do the work on some basic level work, like I just said, asking yourself questions on who someone was and were their actions supporting who I think they were and why. And if you can do that, you're at least starting to do the work at trying to really get who people are and really kind of get to that level of emotional intelligence or empathy that you're really looking for.
Tony's in total agreement with you, by the way. He agrees. Your persona is how others see you. And so I like how Tony put that, and he's following along with you 100%. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a pirate, so I can use persona however I want, even though it's in the wrong context. No, I'm just messing with you. Like that's it. That's the thing. We're not perfect, right? And we can have these vulnerabilities, and we can pull these off. But I think when going back to what you were talking about and going in, and this was so important, the skills that you can build. Listen, sales skills, there are fundamentals, which are pipeline management, which are some conversational pieces of like, what's the difference between a closed-ended question and an open-ended question? What could you use there? I by the way, I love how you use the term "tell me more," which is also open-ended. For those of you that were thinking about it, it's something you should use more often. It's because you don't know enough, or you're actually telling that person you're genuinely curious what you're actually diving into. So just keep that in mind. Tell me more is one of my favorites. So I'm glad that Alex, you use that a lot as well, because you want to know more. You're actually genuinely curious. But going back to it, building out those awareness skills and building out personal skills to see that. There are things you can do out there to really hyper focus on that type of stuff. Essentially, it's for me, it's taking yourself out of the equation and it's more focused on the outside perspective, that person, and and more focused about learning more about who you are interacting with than your own agenda is where it all begins. If you can separate those two, you're already taking the first step into changing your interactions, your changes that you're going into, in establishing a deeper connection and establishing connection with people. There's a saying that I've used a lot in my live sessions, which also is a skill-based thing and something that's super easy to remember. My friend Lincoln always told me, you're born with 2 ears, one mouth.
One mouth for a reason. Yeah.
You listen twice as much as you speak. And if you're speaking more, it doesn't necessarily mean not to speak, but it's being methodical with your speaking. And when you're listening with 2 ears, you're listening, you're not hearing. So you can hear a whole bunch of things, but when you're listening, you're processing. And by processing, you can take the steps that Alex is actually talking about to actually hone in and think about, whoa, I'm talking to Alex right now. He's definitely a relationship person. He's going to buy my subscription pass to Live with Weiss because we just need to make sure we establish this relationship first. He's a relationship builder. As long as we can establish this relationship, he'll subscribe. There's no subscription, by the way. I just want to let everybody know. Please, by all means, join me every week. But, that is where you could start to go in and hit it hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, it just goes back to kind of like starting conversations with people. Actually, like, it's so funny too, because most of the time, people think salespeople like can't start conversations, that there's always going to be some, pitch involved. Like they're building to the pitch because, unfortunately, like, we're paying the penance for every poor salesperson before us, through I've learned in our sales rebellion. It's true though, like people are just jaded by all this bad salespeople and people pitching them just every time. Anyone here on LinkedIn, if every time someone sends like just a purely spam message to buy your stuff without talking to you first, that makes it worse for every single person here trying to kind of make these human connections. Because again, like people don't think it's possible, but like, like I've had people like, what are you trying to sell me? And I'm like, I'm just trying to get to know you. Like, I mean, I don't even know how can I possibly sell you anything if I don't even know you? But again, and sometimes I've been like, well, by the way, like you've asked, so this is what I do. Like, I know it's icky to sell on LinkedIn, but since you asked, here's what I do. I don't know if it's a fit. I don't know if it's, something relevant, or you tell me, you decide, you tell me if I'm off base here, or if I'm crazy. And if so, we can part ways as friends, or if so, I'll see it in the comments, man. I'm good. But it's not like, hey, let's do a meeting. And like, you would never do that in person at a networking event or dating or anything like that. So you can still do all the stuff that you want to do. You can still ask for the business. You just don't ask it for the very first time. Like you can just have this conversation and, hey, by the way, like I've enjoyed our conversation so far. Like, hey, I just got to come out there and say this, like, you're somebody that, is in my territory, or, hey, you're somebody I've been looking at for a while for these different reasons. Here's why I think it might be beneficial for us to meet. If you think if you agree, let me know. If not, hey, I completely understand. I hope we can continue to connect. And maybe, a no right now, again, isn't a no forever, but I think is just like, again, when you create that vibe that like, man, like I enjoy just like, just talking to this person. And then, they'll, again, like be more comfortable about like being real with you when the ask does come, whether it's the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 10th, interaction you've had, like they'll be more apt to do that, just kind of keep that in mind. Like be, are you really trying to start a dialogue on LinkedIn or with people, or are you just doing a monologue? There's something really different about each one of those things. And I would argue that you do the former, especially on LinkedIn.
So 2 things. Sellers who just spam customers on LinkedIn for sales, you ruin it for everybody.
Screwing it up.
Stop it. You're screwing it up. This is going to be a cut. I promise you on that one. Second thing is, if you're selling on LinkedIn and you're trying to build a connection or even a deeper connection, here's 3 things you have to do in order to even establish some sort of connection on LinkedIn when you're connecting with people. 1, please put some sort of content on here on a regular basis. On LinkedIn, you have to, because people, you're trying to make a connection. They're going to, this is the best part, is social media and that perspective. I could click on your profile, Alex, and learn exactly who you are, what you sell, and what product you have. And I need to know who you are, right? That is very simple for them to do, and click on your name and be like, who is this person? I'm going to find out. So make sure your profile is up to date with everything and the language in which it represents. Second thing is continue to post content, because the content that you're posting that is meaningful content and is geared towards an audience, those people will actually be interested. It's like, okay, does this person actually know what they're talking about? Paper's great, but I may not want to talk to them. Oh, but I can listen to what they have to say. They'll listen to what you have to say. And the final thing is, yes, like you said, this is right. I just want to establish a conversation. I don't need to sell you anything right now. Your connection could be a connection with 500,000 other people. I have no idea, but you seem like somebody who my product might fit, may not fit. But in the meantime, let's just connect and maybe start a conversation if you're actually interested. Because those spams, I get them all the time, dude. And they're just like, what are your thoughts? First of all, I got spammed about like getting college insurance, like some sort of insurance for like my college tuition. 35 years old, already done that. I'm already out doing my own thing. So obviously you haven't done your research. But going back to that, be relevant, post content, and with great intentions, because the connections there can be just as deep, just very different. That could be a whole different conversation that we could definitely have, Alex, on social content and social selling, which is, here we go, air quotes, social selling. I'm going to throw that out there. But, as we're getting close to the end here, Alex, and I think we could probably do another 3 episodes in talking about connections and so forth. But, I'd love for you to kind of recap for us, when it comes to the deeper connections, what are some of the key takeaways you want people who are watching this today to pull away from when it comes to the deeper connections in the sales realm?
Yeah. I mean, first off, ask yourself, are you being real? Are you being you? Are you being true to you? And just, are people, do you think you're playing a role, or are you being a real person? And real people do things like screw up, they laugh, they talk about funny stuff, they talk about real things that happen to only them in their day. People want to meet people that are they'll only meet once. There's only one you. So are you being you? Are you giving people information about you that they can only find from you? Ask yourself that question. If you're not, try it. And they'll give you things about them that are only real about them. I love asking people on my podcast. At the very end, I ask the question, tell me something that could only and would only happen to you. Do you know how many awesome stories I've gotten out of that question? Ooh. That they've never answered on another podcast or ever before, because no one asked them. So without being asked, maybe you just throw out hey, this happened to me in my day, or a year ago today is what I'm thinking about. There's something personal about me, or hey, I'm looking forward to this thing that I'm doing in a couple of months. Here's what it is. And they'll tell, this one time, that's crazy. There's just so many places that can go that is just unique. And I think that's gold, when you can have a conversation about information that's only happened to that person. So number one is, offer people something about you that's real to you. Ask yourself, are you being real to you? Second, are you like really picking up on people's emotions? Like you have to ask questions about who people are. Like, what emotions did they display? What actions did they do to support those emotions? What actions did they do to maybe not support, the emotions that they like? How is their actions maybe not aligned to what they told you they're feeling? That sort of thing. So just be aware of those emotions. Ask yourself questions about them. And then, finally, I would just say, again, kind of like realize and understand in a quick amount of time, deep connections can be made. And when I said, what people will give you a chance to be a real person, take them up on it. Like, I'll just give you a story, like, to end. Like, someone, I probably said like a year ago today to this woman, hey, a year ago today, I'm thinking a lot about my dad. We lost my dad a year ago. He was in the hospital and all this stuff. And then she started talking about her mom to me. She started talking about her mom being in hospice and how she, this was a very emotional time for her. And her mom was a rock, and asked her mom's name, and ask people like, what's your mom's name, what's your dog's name, what's they're people, right? And this was somebody that, like, wasn't ready to buy right now. It kind of like she ghosted me for about a month and a half, but then came back and said, like, I remember you talking about, like, I asked, like, how's your mom been? And she wrote me this beautiful email, like a couple paragraphs long, a paragraph long, and said, we're not ready to do anything right now. We'll be in touch. And, like, wouldn't you know, like a week or two later, I got, a message from her boss, and now we're in a buying cycle, and we're off to the races. So, people will give you a chance to be a real person, take them up on it, and be conscious of it, because it's just where people actually are craving it. Believe it or not. I don't care what people say about value is everything. Yes, it's true. You need value. People aren't going to just buy you because you're awesome at relationships. They're not
right.
They're not paying money for that crap. Just that. They are, like, they need value. But I'm sorry, like, you're going to get a better chance to discovering that problem together and discovering that value together if you create the conditions where people are safe, where where they're vulnerable, where there's empathy, and where they believe that you care about the relationship that's being made, and you can, you can be somebody that they can bounce ideas off of. Like, when you're someone they can bounce ideas off of, and they come to the solution themselves, then they're not being sold. They're just being guided. They're being helped. They're being, the essence of sales is truly, I believe, is they're being, truly loved, and the sale is a result of all those things that you just did. So keep that stuff in mind, gang.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Now, of course, at the end of this segment, I always like to allow the guest, Alex, to do your 1 minute shameless plug. So I'm going to give you full screen access, and you drop what's going on. You've got 1 minute. Rock and roll, brother.
I have no shame in my game. So thanks so much, Matt Weiss, for bringing me on and talking about all this stuff. If you liked any of this stuff that I was talking about today, just connect with me. I want to hear from you, not a connect and pitch, just connect and gratitude, maybe. I'm on LinkedIn, Alex Smith. I work at a company called Docebo, Docebo. I also do a podcast. So if you listen to podcasts, Google stories of selling human, and you'll bring it up on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts. I interview some amazing guests that look at that look at sales through the lens of human connection, and that's not just salespeople; it's people throughout all walks of life. And so I think we all can share these stories that would make us human, tell our human stories, and really sell by being human. So find me there, and let's connect on LinkedIn. Thanks so much, Matt, for bringing me on.
Alex, the honor is all mine. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody who joined in today. Really appreciate it. And catch us next time as we start to rock and roll. But Alex, again, thank you. You all take care. Have a good one. You want the